Buenos dias! Welcome to another lesson of Spanish 1010 with Virginia College. For this lesson, we'll be discussing ER and IR verb conjugation. It's very similar to a previous lesson on AR verb conjugation. The process is the same. The only thing that changes are the endings of the verbs. You can print out this chart, or a chart just like this, off of the course home through your notes, or in the document in doc sharing. Or you can feel free to write it down now and have it handy. The subject pronouns are the same: yo, tú, él, ella, usted, nosotros, nosotras, vosotros, vosotras, ellos, ellas, and ustedes. The only thing that changes now is the ending that you would use for the verb. ER and IR verbs are recognizable because they end in either ER or IR. Previously, we discussed AR verbs. Those are the majority of verbs in Spanish, but there are also ER and IR verbs. The endings for ER and IR verbs are the same in 4 forms and different in 2 forms. In the yo form, it's O, just like with AR verbs. In the tú, it's es. Él, ella, and usted, the ending is e. For nosotros and nosotras, ER verbs use hemos as an ending, and IR verbs use imos as an ending. For vosotros and vosotras, ER verbs use es, and IR verbs use is. Ellos, ellas, and ustedes use the ending en. This information is also in your textbook. Let's do a few examples of how to conjugate ER and IR verbs. You can use the subject pronouns, just like we've talked about when we conjugated the verb ser, and also with AR verbs. The steps are the same. You remove the ER or the IR, depending on if it's an ER or IR verb. You determine the subject and the appropriate ending, and then you add the ending on to the root of the verb. For example, if you had to say they write, the verb is escribir, which means to write. So step 1 is to remove the IR, which will leave us with escrib. The second step is to determine the subject and the ending. If you want to say they write, ellos means they, and so the ending is en. And the third step is to add the appropriate ending onto the root. Escriben means they write. In this example, we eat. Eat is the verb comer. Step 1 is to remove the ER. Step 2 is to determine the subject and the ending. You go to your list. Nosotros is we. For nosotros, the ending is hemos. And the third step is to add the appropriate ending. So take the root and add the ending. You've now conjugated the verb, and it means we eat. A third example might be you live. To live is the verb vivir. Step 1 is to remove the IR. Step 2 is to determine the subject and the ending. The subject is tú, because tú means you, and the ending is es. And step 3 is to add the appropriate ending. So you take your root and you add the es at the end. And now the verb means you live. This is formally called verb conjugation, but it's the way that you can communicate effectively in Spanish.